Homeless Solutions, Noah Rickun. There's no way for God deceased to follow what happened to myself and move the creation around myself. And I am deceased out of my genitals having been formed female. So I'm not castrated in reverse. That means that God did something disastrous to himself by talking to me after I started creation about where do I live, because I don't own my house with who I am, from the points of view of the strangers. Well, you're strangers. You're due in prison because you're strangers, and I don't tell you that. No, you're supposed to know that because you are yourself, and the way you're being created is supposed to lead you to an unclean death of yourself. I don't have the threatening that I am going to pay the landlord the charges that are still in view here. And I don't actually know when the charges are to be paid again, because it's true that I have not been watching the charges being paid during God's deceasement. I'm here for God deceasement, but I'm not actually giving the leverage for God deceasement. That means he might not be knowing that he's going to be deceased with some of the things he's doing to myself. Which is that he's bringing me food. I still need food every day. The problem with me getting food from God deceased is that he has not been doing that throughout my lifetime for myself. He's been doing that for himself, like his people. And I'm not in it with you. I don't have a life that way. And you all of a sudden would know that if you were supposed to bring me food because I am myself, and you say no because I'm not yourself. That's really not due, because that was due elsewhere when I was not eating, and that you just leave myself and go out and do what you're going to do in life. But you wanted leverage over me, and there's no such thing as leverage over me. You can't have leverage over me, and you don't want the time you are to yourselves alone. And we are there again, that you don't have any options for yourself, that you're here for yourself. You're not. You're due in an unclean death before now. You are illegally alive now. And that was elsewhere's true. When I was in my house, there was people in my house, and they were illegally alive in my house. I wasn't trying to tell you to get out of my house. There's nothing for you to get out of my house. You're in my house trespassing, and all you're supposed to do is just leave and find an unclean death for yourself. You're not supposed to eat anything because you're planning for a long life. If that was funny to you, it's funny right here in the other way, that I don't have another life for me. I deceased myself out of the order of being formed in feminine genitals, and my feminine genitals on myself are deceased out of the order of creations all, and deceased out of the order of the formed world. That's how serious you are about how you don't have a problem. And that's how serious I am about how you don't have another problem coming. I suppose we'll revisit that in the afterlife in Superior Founder, where I will be deceased out of the genitals and you will be able to see me in another form of myself. Yes, but you'll still have your genitals on. I was saying that I might still have my genitals on. It's really not due at this time to be known, because I'm supposed to finish eating all the food you stole from me, and I need genitals for that. That means you stole my genitals themselves because I was eating food. You wanted that exact food I was eating for yourselves, and you extended it. You made it so that I had to pursue getting other food. And then when I lose that food, I have to pursue getting other food. And then when I lose that food, I have to pursue getting other food. All the way until I deceased out of my genitals is disclosed in the formed world. And that's illegal. That's you having done that again, like here. Well, I don't know where you're going with that, because there is none higher than me is disclosed about 3 years ago. It's going on 3 years ago. And it was homeless to say no to you, but that's what's wrong with it. You put me out homeless in female genitals. You need for your own genitals to be alive. You just don't want to admit that your genitals are illegal, because you are yourselves, and I alive your genitals is illegal because you are yourselves, not because I am myself. And you don't actually find me to be uh, myself deceased everywhere I am. You think that I have to do things for myself because I need things. That's me needing something, like you make charges in the public to myself, but you're not supposed to. You didn't make any progress for that. You don't make charges against myself, either to somebody else who's doing something for me or to myself if I'm doing something for myself. And you charged me right out of my genitals being formed. And that's you having charged your own genitals, but you don't have prejudice that way. You didn't know each other when you were doing that. You didn't, because when you go to the public and pay charges, you don't know who's going to make the charges, but the charges are everywhere. You can't get anything without the charges. There's price, there's always price, but you have to pay a cashier. Attendant of a cash register is paying charges that they won't let you leave with whatever you want, or they won't do a service for you unless you pay them the charges. And then they want to know that they're employed and that they can be there and that they can hold their keys, and that they're doing something for you that you can't do for yourself because of the charges. And I don't have anything in that. That's due for you to be in jails and prisons. And then you can make charges in there and you get shot with a gun. Patrolling on myself, uh, by the creation of myself, that I used to work at El Cortez and I could be shot by a gun myself for having made charges. I know, because you want to tell me what's wrong with me. The creation of myself is doing that because you're still watching YouTube. Well, I need the creation of myself deceased because I'm not here to be taught a lesson about myself with my own life of failures, of you didn't pay the charges for me. Let's get back to that. I don't know you watching the exterior doorknob. Nope, I don't know you that way. So you want to shoot me with a gun? I know, because I'm none higher than me deceased. Well, that's quite a bounty, isn't it? So that you don't have to go to prison if you don't want to, because you're not a bounty hunter that's looking for a death on yourself. You're a bounty hunter that's looking for control over banks' money and how you're going to spend it with freedoms on yourself and all the things you want to do with yourself and buy. Sure, you don't think there's something wrong with that. You just want to fit in with the public. I realize that, but the public is doing prisons immediately. I don't actually run the world, that the public is going out and about waiting for God to death the whole world at once. How do you're going to get trapped in your genitals and you're going to be murdered by that the world just died before you did. You didn't die out of your genitals before the world died out of its formed buildings and houses and cars. The world's going to die out of formed cars and buildings and houses before you die out of your formed genitals. And you're going to be trapped in your genitals that way, and you'll see yourself again. Yeah, but for the last time, because you're not allowed in any creation after you've done that with yourselves. As though it's funny, you don't know how to be yourself? You know, because you're still being created between now and the time the end of the formed world is for myself. Well, that's how I don't want the kind of thought I'm having in here about You say no to everything you hear, and you say every word that comes out of my mouth is for my own ears hearing and not for yours. But that's you saying that. I would say I'm talking to the creation of myself, but you don't let that go. You still want me to have everything I say out loud to happen against myself, to myself, about myself, for myself, and you are just watching the creation of myself like it's TV and you're not there, and you are there. You are saying that you're not present for what I'm saying with myself to the creation of myself. It's not just about myself. I am not alone. You are blaspheming that I am alone, and that's not you. But then you're not there. You're due elsewhere. You don't understand that about yourself without me saying it explicitly. You are due elsewhere for an unclean death on yourself.